we get a close-up of Lawrence here? Take a look at.
Looking incredible.
You look great, but honestly, like, tell me there's not some Eddie Murphy going on right here. I'm dead serious, man. With the haircut, the glasses, and the mustache. That's Bowfinger. That's a screenshot from Bowfinger, from Eddie Murphy and Bowfinger.
So look at the bottom of his hair, right? It looks like he got like a little mullet right there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get that.
That's fair.
By the time we get to the playoffs, I'm gonna have a little mullet to go. I ain't gonna get the braces though.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Connor Rodgers, Matthew Berry, the return of Jay Croucher. You're really missing some wild times.
Yeah, you guys have a great time on Wednesday.
Lots of laughs.
We do. The mood feels lighter. It just, I don't know, everyone seems to get along better.
Yeah,
you know, it's free popcorn day here at NBC Sports as well. It puts everyone in a great mood.
By the way, if you have a mullet, you drink free today.
Yeah.
As Lawrence is working on his. So all our mullet growers out there, mullet havers.
Yeah.
You drink free at the happy hour bar today.
Sauce, Devin Achane.
Lawrence has a long way to go. There's a long way to go on the mullet front.
That's all right. I believe in him.
Time.
Yeah.
I believe in Lawrence.
They're big in Australia, you know.
Are they?
Yeah.
Like it's a common hairstyle?
Yes, somewhat.
Or
it was in like the 80s, and now people do a throwback. I'll get you some photos.
Why don't you do one?
Week.
Yeah. Why don't you honor your country? Why don't you honor your heritage?
Also, if I can find some photos of me with the mullet when I was 15 years old playing Australian football, they might be floating around.
That would be amazing.
The darkness of the interwebs might be some photos
around there somewhere.
Buried in the darkest corners. Really.
Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with those corners. I'm sure you can navigate them.
That's where I do my best work.
Yes.
It's Love-Hate Day, so we have a lot to go through. Of course, massive Thursday night football, especially for you on tap. Giants Cowboys.
Oh yeah.
Big game.
What are the odds go if the Giants win tonight at home? The Cowboys traveling on a short week. What do the odds go to? They're at plus 30 now, right? Was it plus 80?
Which is offensive. They should have dropped more than from 80 to 1 to 30 to 1. If they beat the Cowboys, now the problem is Giants still probably won't be great at football, and the Eagles are still in the division, and the Commanders also, who are kind of in the
2-1.
Commanders
Life.
Commanders like plus 650 to win the division. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's kind of sickening, really.
Yeah.
I think the Giants.
Wait. So they're plus 650, and the Giants are what? Plus 300?
Giants plus 3,000.
Oh, plus 3,000 makes more sense.
Commanders are plus 650, and then Eagles are the minus money heavy favorite, and then the Cowboys like plus 275, that type of range.
Yeah, I
think the Giants will go to
Giants
will like 14 to 1, 13 to 1 type of range for the division, which will be offensive as they'll have the same amount of wins as anyone else in the division. But we'll see. It's a big game. Big game in New York.
It is a big game, and
New Jersey.
We will, in the swamplands of Jersey.
We'll have our best bets for that one.
Yeah, that'll be coming up in the show.
But before we do, love-hate running backs, and it starts with a massive return to Green Bay this weekend. Take a listen to Aaron Jones on what he had to say on the big game and his big return.
Is there any chip on his shoulder, or do we maybe make too much of that?
I always have had a chip on my shoulder since I've been playing football, so I feel like I've always been overlooked or underrated so I've always had a chip on my shoulder, and that's never going to change.
Aaron, have you thought about what it might feel like to score a touchdown at Lambeau in a different uniform?
Of course. Of course. If you're not thinking about the end zone, you're thinking about the wrong thing. No, definitely, and I'm definitely leaping. Definitely leaping up there. It depends on which end zone I'm scoring, but either end zone is not too tall, so it is kind of high up there, but I can still get up there. So either one. Hopefully there's a Vikings fan.
Love-hate, one of the great personalities in the NFL, Aaron Jones, and he penned a thank you to Green Bay in the Players Tribune where he said, that's the biggest thing I want to write here, not just to the Packers organization, but really to all of Green Bay. Thank you. It's going to feel strange being on that visiting sideline for the first time and being on the other side of this NFC North thing in general, but it's all love and it's so much gratitude. Thanks for betting on me, riding with me, hashtagging for me, and everything else. Thanks for seeing me. No G on the helmet Sunday, always one in my heart, Aaron.
Number 33 on the field, number 1 in your heart, free Aaron Jones. Listen, he's been nothing short of spectacular this year. This is the kind of thing, Jay Croucher, that happens when you free Aaron Jones. He's averaging 18 touches a game. He's got over 108 scrimmage yards per game. That's his average. And most importantly, not only is he getting the goal line work, right? He's also getting the receiving work. He has a 19.4% target share this season. That is the second most among running backs. They're using him so much in the passing game. Why does that matter in this game against the Packers? Because Green Bay has allowed the 5th most receiving yards to opposing running backs. Free Aaron Jones. Hashtag free Aaron Jones. This is something that I started back on the old Fantasy Focus 06-010 days as well, when Mike McCarthy refused to use Aaron Jones, and it became sort of a running joke on the podcast, and people started doing a lot of things with it, and people started showing up with signs, free Aaron Jones and 06-010 and everything like that. And the reason I bring that up is the Players Tribune article that you mentioned in there. He brings up the fact that I saw, the free Aaron Jones hashtag and everything like that, and that really made me happy that it made him happy. I never knew whether it ever reached his radar. Oh, yeah. If you ever knew it, but I've literally been doing that joke for a decade now. And the fact of the matter is it's true. When Aaron Jones gets work, he's always productive. Don't get me started on a Mike McCarthy rant about how, no one's done less with more talent than Mike McCarthy. Don't get me started. But hashtag free Aaron Jones. He's a top 10 play for me this week.
Yep, 100% approval rating for Aaron Jones as a man, as a character, and this season as a fantasy asset. I think the key with the Vikings is that he has shown that he doesn't have to have like workhorse, bell cow type of usage. He can still produce. He's being super efficient this season, as he always is. And he gets a matchup against Green Bay, who got lit up by Saquon Barkley on the ground in week 1 in Brazil, who got quietly lit up by Jonathan Taylor on the ground. It's just the game script. Like, Taylor was incredibly efficient in that game. So I don't really understand this line. Like, the Packers are 3-point favorites over the Vikings. Like, why are the Packers better than the Vikings? Like, the Vikings just eviscerated the Texans.
There are, not to derail this too much, but there are a number of lines this week that are mind-boggling to me, like that one. Like, the Vikings are undefeated, and yet they are giving points. We actually talked about this yesterday. We said, Jay always says home field is 1.5 points, right? That's what it's worth. But for the Packers to be giving points to the Vikings, for them to be a favorite, the Vikings getting points, an undefeated Vikings team seems very weird to me. Like the fact that the Bills are getting points from the Ravens, that the Bills are underdogs. Even my Commanders. My Commanders are 2-1. The Cardinals are 1-2, and yet the Cardinals are favored by 3.5 in this one. Like, there's a number of scenarios like that.
I don't really understand why the Saints are 1.5-point dogs to the Falcons as well.
That's another one. Yes.
I think a lot of this is it's skepticism about Sam Darnold and the expectation Jordan Love is going to come back, and the fact that there is a chance like Jordan Love might be like the 6th best quarterback in football, and I think there's still, like, Sam Darnold might be 20th or whatever. Maybe he's a little bit better than that now. So that is the gap. Love at home, but still, Vikings might have the best defense in the sport.
1,000%. We don't know if Jordan Love's going to be 100% healthy. This was expected to be an injury that was going to take much longer, and he's shortened the time frame, which is great for Jordan Love and the pass catchers there. But still, it's like, to your point, the Vikings have a very good defense. The Vikings have been nothing short of terrific, and it's not like the Vikings haven't beat anyone. I mean, they just they beat San Francisco. They beat. Why am I blanking on who they beat last week?
The Texans.
The Texans, they eviscerated the Texans. Like, wasn't even close. So
they crushed the New York Football Giants, division winners to be. Right. 28-6. That actually looks like a much more impressive
win. A better win today, yes, it does, than it started the season. Last thing on this, and then we'll move on, I promise you guys. But I'm curious what you think about this. I have a friend, he's a longtime sports bettor, and he has this rule. And I sort of agree with the rule. He goes, after week 3 of the NFL season, he goes, anytime a team with a winning record is getting points from a team that has a worse record, you bet it. It doesn't matter how ugly it looks. It doesn't matter how stinky you're like, I can't believe this, but you bet it. He goes, and it works out about 66, 70% of the time.
Great record.
I think the thing is with all these kind of like trends and kind of suppositions like that is they make you ask questions. They make you ask the right questions, then you can interrogate it from there. And I don't think people really appreciate how good the Vikings defense is yet. And also, we just don't know what Jordan Love's going to look like. By the way, Jordan Love looked terrible in week 1. He did not look good against the Eagles at all, and I get it's Brazil, strange field, everything. Jordan Love's probably going to be fine, but I don't know, it's a tough defense to come up against.
I bet the Vikings getting the points. I bet the Bills, I bet the Saints, I bet the Commanders. Like, all these teams with better records getting points. Give me all of them.
Our next running back, James Conner, he's got the Commanders. Jay, the Commanders right now are allowing over 5 yards per carry to running backs this season.
Yeah, and James Conner, he's kind of been screwed by game context a little bit, certainly against the Lions, who have a great rush defense. Well, the Commanders don't have a great anything defense.
No.
And this Commanders team, and I believe in Jayden Daniels, he's been remarkable through 3 weeks. This is one of the great over teams in the history of sports, this Washington team, because Daniels and the offense have been so good and there's nothing fluky about Daniels. We'll get to that at some point, but just on a per drive basis, they've been incredible. And the defense just has nothing. Like, there's just nothing there with the defense. Like, I'm not sure who really the above average players are on the defense. I'm not sure what the hope is there. And so the Cardinals, the total is in the low 50s for this one. And James Conner should be efficient and should be in scoring position.
Two good offenses against two bad defenses. We saw what happened on Monday night when the exact same thing happened. Bengals and Commanders. So we expect a lot of points to be scored here. And most importantly, James Conner, who's had at least 19 touches in 2 of the 3 games this year. He had only 10 last week, but remember, Arizona only had the ball for like 23 minutes. The Lions just, controlled the clock there. The reason I bring up the 19 touches, running backs that have gotten at least 17 touches against my Commanders are averaging 17.3 fantasy points per game. They're giving up 5.2 yards per carry to running backs. We just saw Zack Moss run all over them as well. So give me James Conner as a top 10 play this week as well, and I feel pretty good about his chances of falling into the end zone.
Zack Moss, a top 20 play for you, Matthew. He's got the Panthers, and the thing with Zack Moss is right now he gets all the goal line work. He gets almost all of the red zone work as well in this backfield.
And they're also using him somewhat in the passing game as well. I think, we're starting to see some of these running back committees start a better player emerge, right? I mean, so we'll get to it tonight, but we're seeing Rico Dowdle sort of separate himself a little bit from Ezekiel Elliott or Bucky Irvin. Bucky Irvin is coming. Rashad White managers, backup producer Pete talking to you, watch out because Bucky Irving is coming. And then we're seeing it in Cincinnati where the preseason buzz was, Chase Brown is going to run away with this job, and that has not happened. It's been Zack Moss, whose touches have increased every single week this season. He's got a 75% snap rate, which is 6th best among running backs. 75% of the snaps for a good offense. And to your point, Connor, 100% of the team's goal line rushes, when they get in close, they're giving it to Zack Moss, who has 11 of the 12 running back red zone touches as well. And now they go on the road to Carolina, where the Panthers are bottom 5 of the NFL in terms of most rush yards allowed and most rushing touchdowns allowed to running backs. Zack Moss, top 20 play for me this week.
All right, another one here, guys, as a couple others receive votes. We got Devin Singletary tonight on Thursday Night Football. We've seen how much that Cowboys front seven has really struggled, and Singletary gets a lot of volume in Brian Daboll's offense. Najee Harris, as the Steelers are dealing with injuries, a specific knee injury to Jaylen Warren right now. And then Rico Dowdle, as you mentioned, Matthew. It just feels like his workload increases as Ezekiel Elliott's goes down.
Consecutive games with double-digit touches and a double-digit target share for Rico Dowdle. Giants allow the 3rd most yards per carry to running backs. They're giving up 5.3. This game is on the road, short week at New York. You expect them to lean on Dowdle somewhat. And then it's 2 of Jay's guys right there. Devin Singletary of his beloved New York Giants and your boy Najee.
Yeah, Najee against the Colts, who have not been great in run defense this year. They've set Joe Mixon alight for the greatest game of week 1. So certainly you love the matchup there. This Steelers team is just going to continue to lean on the run. That is a team that has maybe the most fixed identity in the league right now on offense, where they're just going to pound the rock. They're going to win with defense. And then Devin Singletary, it's a weird one with Dallas, because Dallas, obviously the run defense has been catastrophic. At the same time, run defense, Connor, is probably the easiest thing to just fix schematically, in that they can just load the box and just put more people in there and then dare Daniel Jones to beat them.
Right. We had this combo when the Jets got demolished by San Francisco week 1, and then you look at what other teams try to do to them. Schematically, you just load the box and try to stop the run. But I will say to this, one thing I do like with the Giants this year is they have a really good screen game going, where maybe that does kind of keep you off balance of how you oversell against the run. So I think Singletary's in for a big night. I really, really like his numbers tonight.
Also worth noting, we're not expecting Jaylen Warren to play on Sunday as well, which also increases Najee Harris. You'll see some more Cordero Patterson as well, but no team has allowed more rushing yards to running backs than the Indianapolis Colts.
We move to the hate list. Devon Achane,
that is.
Still a top 15 play, but the Titans, Matthew, have been really good against the run with not just Jeffrey Simmons in the middle, but rookie T'Vondre Sweat. And the fact is, Miami doesn't have much of a threat under center to help their run game either.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Titans, you're sitting here going, what do we need to stop? We're not worried about we don't know if it's going to be Tim Boyle or Tyler Huntley or Skylar Thompson under center just yet, but the Dolphins have the 4th lowest implied team total in week 4. This game has a 37 over-under as well. We're just not expecting it. To your point about that defense on Tennessee, they're giving up just 3.7 yards per carry to running backs this season. Devon Achane looked human on the road at Seattle last week as well. And so look, you're still starting Devon Achane. I want to be clear about this. You're still starting him. I'm at running back 11. But relative to expectations, when we saw Tua go down, we're like, oh, here's this explosive player who's not going to get a massive workload, wheels up for Devon Achane. And that just isn't the case. Just this offense isn't good enough. They're not going to be on the field long enough. They're not going to sustain drives long enough. Achane becomes more of a RB2 than kind of the top 5 guy that his talent and the workload with Mostert banged up would suggest he could be if they had a starting quarterback that we felt good about.
And Jay, we talk about this a lot. Teron Armstead, when he gets hurt, this is a different offense. He has 3 different injuries, 3 games into the season right now. That hurts Achane as well.
Yeah, definitely. And look, for as much criticism as Tua Tagovailoa takes, and look, I don't think Tua is a top 7, top 8 quarterback, but I certainly think he's an above average quarterback. Like with him out, this team going into the season was thought of as a Super Bowl contender, basically like a joint favorite for the AFC East with the Jets and the Bills. Now he's out. And all of a sudden, the market is rating this team as basically the worst team in football right now, the Dolphins. Like, their pick at home against an 0-3 Titans team that's coming off a horrific loss. So that's where they're at
on Monday Night Football.
It's not ideal. These two teams also played a ridiculous, I think, Monday Night Football game last year where Will Levis led the Titans back. But look, It's Achane, Tyreek, you still have to start these guys, but I don't think you're doing it with great confidence. And guys, we'll talk about it at some point, but Jalen Waddle, I don't feel good about anyone else in Miami.
No, you certainly do not.
J.K. Dobbins potentially dealing with a tough situation this week as well. Jay, as we keep an eye on Justin Herbert's status going into the game, it's totally up in the air at the moment.
Yeah, so the Chiefs, they've been very successful against running backs this season in terms of yards accumulation. Now, historically, the past couple of years, they haven't been elite in terms of a per play basis, but they're the Chiefs and they're always playing with a lead, and thus it's very hard for running backs to compile stats against them. And I do think last week they found something with Spags. They clearly made the decision. Bijan Robinson is not going to beat us. Bijan was 16 carries for 31 yards. You keep Bijan Robinson to under 2 yards per carry. That's pretty impressive for your run defense. And so I think with Dobbins, here's what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to have a poor game because they're going to be trailing and they're not going to have the script. Then I would try and trade for J.K. Dobbins because quietly he had 15 carries to, I believe, Gus Edwards 3 last week. It looks like he's going to be the guy in this backfield. And I think the Chargers, they're probably going to lose this game. He's probably not going to do a great deal. But then they have the bye to get healthier. And I think Dobbins could be in for a big rest of the season.
I like that call as well. Not only did they hold Bijan Robinson to a low total, they also did that to Derrick Henry, obviously, in the season opener against the Ravens. And to your point, again, with whether it's Taylor Heineke, either one-legged Justin Herbert or Taylor Heineke under center or the stick man, whoever is under center for the Bolts, you don't feel great about the offense against the Chiefs in this one as well. So J.K. Dobbins outside my top 20 for the week does make the hate list.
Rhamondre Stevenson, guys, also on the hate list. Matthew, this one's pretty simple. The Patriots have the lowest implied team total going into Week 4. That shouldn't surprise anyone.
And they're on the road at San Francisco, a suddenly desperate San Francisco team. They're 1-2. They're 1-2. They need to win this week. The Patriots are the biggest underdog in Week 4, so game script obviously not in his favor. When the Patriots played it close in Weeks 1 and 2, he got 20 or more touches. In that Week 3 loss to the Jets, he got 6 touches. And so that's the concern here is on the road at San Francisco. You don't expect them to be competitive in this game as well. Feels like they got exposed a little bit on Thursday night with the Jets. And again, Kyle Shanahan, yes, they might not have Kittle, they may not have Debo, but whatever. They're going to put up points.
And they could have Kittle. Kittle was limited early in the week, but we need to keep an eye on that one.
I think, too, now that we're 3 games in, we can start to adjust for opponent a little bit. We learned more from previous matchups. And a lot of the Patriots, a lot of their kind of production this season was in Week 1 against the Bengals, who look like they might have a bottom 3, bottom 4 defense in football at the moment.
That's a good point. All right, let's move over to the pass catchers here, guys, as we start the love list with Marvin Harrison Jr. Jay, how about a 34.5% target share in the 2 games since that Week 1 nightmare for young Marv?
Yeah. You guys remember in 2020, 2021 when Aaron Rodgers won MVP in his first week of that season? He threw 3 picks against New Orleans and they lost 41-3. Yeah. That was the Jameis Winston Saints. To me, that is what Marv Harrison did against the Bills in Week 1, where it's just so departed from what the rest of the season is going to look like. He didn't have statistically the biggest game against the Lions, but he still had a very healthy target share. where Kyler missed him as well for what should have been another big play. So I think with Marv, you can just lock him in as the fringe wide receiver 1 going forward, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, he's my wide receiver 6 this week as well. You mentioned the target share in the 2 games since week 1. You see it there. It's north of 30%. And now he gets my Commanders, my beautiful Commanders.
The elixir.
They've allowed at least 22 points to a wide receiver in every game this year, right? Malik Neighbors, Jamar Chase, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. So you feel good about Marvin Harrison's chances are. They've allowed 9 touchdowns to opposing wide receivers so far this year. That's the most in the NFL, and in fact, it's 3 more than any other team. They're averaging a touchdown more to wide receivers per game than any other team in the NFL. You're starting Marvin Harrison Jr. I would start Marvin Harrison Sr. in this game, honestly. I believe there's no greater answer to a wide receiver's problems than my Washington Commanders secondary. That's one of the reasons why I'm so bullish on Jayden Daniels. In order to win, they're going to have to put up 35 to 40 points. Yep. I actually got interviewed the other day by the Washington Post. They did a feature on me about a bunch of different stuff. You can Google it if you want to. But part of what the conversation was about the Commanders and hey, is this a playoff team? I'm like, listen, no one's a bigger homer than I am, but we still had. Jayden Daniels had to complete 91% of his passes, play basically perfectly. We had to put up 38 points to win. We're gonna have to stop somebody at some point to get anywhere close to the playoffs.
To be fair, you're not gonna have to play Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase on the road too much either. I think the Commanders. I think their offense is just real. I think this is just a very good offense. The way that it's playing, the defense has no prayer whatsoever, and this game could end in the 70s. No, it's very exciting for the Commanders. A lot of the betting sharp community is very high on the Commanders because of the offense. Because the offense, you don't put up, whoever the opponent is, you don't play this well on offense for 3 games unless you're real.
That's why I like the plus 3.5. Commanders getting plus 3.5 against that.
They can stay in games.
Yeah, exactly. The Cardinal, and they've been in Arizona all week. And by the way, revenge game for Cliff Kingsbury, revenge game for Zach Ertz. We'll see how this all plays out. But either way, you're starting Marv, and you're feeling pretty good about it.
Nico Collins, he's been the guy in the Texans offense right now. Team high 26% target share, and he gets a lot of looks in the end zone, Matthew.
Yeah, he does.
Evil feeling about Nico Collins.
I love Nico Collins. Who doesn't love Nico Collins? I'll tell you who doesn't love Nico Collins. People that are going to face him in fantasy this week, because Nico Collins is going to go off, right? He's my wide receiver 7. First off, I like the fact that this game is at home. In 10 career home games with C.J. Stroud as his quarterback, Nico Collins averaging almost 22 fantasy points per game. He gets the Jaguars, and we've talked about this. So many of the issues are on offense for Jacksonville. Sorry, producer Steven, but the fact of the matter is that the Jaguars have also defensively struggled. They give up the 4th most yards on deep passes this season. They've allowed the 5th most fantasy points to perimeter wide receivers as well. Nico Collins is clearly the alpha for that Texans offense. He runs the most routes, he plays the most snaps, he gets the most targets. Wheels up for Nico Collins.
Here's the other thing too. At the end of that game against the Vikings, they're losing 34-7. Nico Collins is still in there at the end, getting end zone targets. This is
crazy.
Insane. But that bodes
from
well.
Davis Mills.
Yeah, that bodes well. If the man wants to be in there accumulating stats, that helps with fantasy. They all count the same.
They all count
just
the same.
Travis Etienne.
It just killed me. Travis Etienne. It was the worst.
Andy Dalton taking over under center for the Panthers, Jay. This is great news for Diontae Johnson. And on top of that, Adam Thielen put on IR this week. He'll miss the next 4.
Yeah, we have a strange scenario now where it's possible the 2 most targeted receivers in football this week are Malik Neighbors and Diontae Johnson. Because there's no one else. There's no one else in the Carolina.
Sure.
Adam Thielen on IR, to your point. It is purely Diontae Johnson in terms of marquee players in this pass game. And Andy Dalton, he showed, and they're going up against the Bengals defense, which is horrific. Panthers were 7-point dogs. Now they're 4.5-point dogs against the Bengals in what looks like something that's going to be a shootout.
Yeah, and by the way, Diontae Johnson has always been talented. He's always had, been a great route runner and everything like that. But the issue with Diontae Johnson, fantasy-wise, over the years has sometimes been it's been that crazy touchdown. There's that one year where he's one of the league leaders in end zone targets and didn't score a touchdown or got one at the last game. Anyway, so far this year, no player in the NFL has more end zone targets this year than Diontae Johnson. And now with Andy Dalton, he's got a quarterback that can get it somewhere near him. get it near him, and he's coming down with it. I have his wide receiver 11 this week. Wheels up for Diontae Johnson.
Another top 15 play for you, Matthew. Chris Godwin. We know how it works for the Bucs offense. You get looks to Mike Evans. You get looks to Chris Godwin. He's taken advantage of his this year.
And by the way, Philadelphia for years has always struggled against tight ends. They struggle in slot defense. This year is no exception. The 6th most yards to the slot. They're tied with the most touchdowns allowed to the slot. So Chris Godwin, who has a 30% target share, which is 7th among all wide receivers, he's a top 12 play for me this week. Should be wheels up for Chris Godwin. I don't know why I keep saying wheels up, but I kind of like the phrase.
Yeah, I used the word suppositions before. I have no idea what that word means.
Fair.
I'm not sure if it's real.
Yeah, it might not be, but it's all right.
Just go with it.
Yeah.
English is both of our second language.
It's a
I
little more
speak
fair.
Australian.
A little
You
more
speak
fair for you.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Dalton Kincaid on the love list. Caught the touchdown on Monday Night Football. Jay caught a touchdown early. It looks like they were just really focusing on getting him involved, and Baltimore's been brutal against tight ends this year.
But Baltimore's defense might not be good, and I think that defense is the one thing where you have to kind of update your expectations very quickly earlier into the season because it doesn't carry over from season to season as much. And there are reasons why Baltimore's defense wouldn't be as good. They lost key players like Geno Stone, Patrick Queen, Devin Clowney, all gone, Mike McDonald, all gone. They had no real answer for the Cowboys when the Cowboys were coming back. They had no answer for the Chiefs in week 1. They had no real answer for Gardner Minshew in week 2. So this defense just might not be that good. And against the Bills team, the sneaky thing with the Bills, as good as Allen has been, and by the efficiency stats, he's had the best 3-game start to a season
ever
ever in NFL history. A lot of it has been short. It's a lot of yak, and I think that helps Dalton Kincaid a lot.
Dalton Kincaid, and I get it, like the touchdown last week, it was like a third read, Allen scrambling around.
That's part of his game.
But that's part of his game, the off-schedule stuff. But the fact of the matter is that surprisingly, I think this will surprise people that have Kincaid on their team because the production hasn't been there up until last week. But still, he leads the Bills in both red zone and end zone targets. And to your point about Baltimore, Connor, struggling against tight ends, they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Jake Ferguson, Brock Bowers both finished the weeks they played against the Ravens as top 3 fantasy tight ends. Who else are you going to start? You're starting Dalton Kincaid, but I'm as a top 5 play this week.
Wheels up.
Wheels up.
Others
Bird
receiving
up.
votes.
Bird up against the Ravens.
Bill up.
Bill up. What is it? It's like Buffalo up.
No,
I don't know
that's
about
not
that.
a thing. It's only tight.
We'll just go with keep pounding on this show.
Yeah.
Odunze, Khalil Shakir, Darnell Mooney, Demario Douglas, and Zach Ertz. All receiving votes this week. Jay, no Keenan Allen last week, and Odunze got involved.
Absolutely. I think, look, as maligned as Caleb Williams has been, it is still impressive that he was able to put up 363 yards in an NFL game. Like, Bryce Young wasn't doing that last year. And no one's that worried about Caleb Williams, but I think it's going to turn around. Caleb is doing, he's just making mistakes, but he's doing a lot of advanced things at the line. He's showing the flashes, and I think that the fact that Keenan Allen is injured, Odunze has emerged as kind of 1B in that offense.
By the way, no team has allowed more yards and touchdowns on deep passes this year than the LA Rams, who Chicago plays this week as well. We're talking about that Bills passing offense. Feels like Khalil Shakir has sort of established himself as the best wide receiver. You've got Kincaid there, but he's got almost a 20% target share. He's had double-digit fantasy points in every game so far this season. And as we've talked about with this Ravens defense, it's kind of shaky. 8th most yards to the slot so far this season. That's what Baltimore's given up. That's where Shakir runs the majority of his routes. Darnell Mooney's there. We've talked about him earlier in the show. He's become a thing. If you're desperate, you got to be super desperate. But I do think we saw some signs of life from Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas, last Thursday night. And hey, hashtag revenge game. Zach Ertz back to Arizona, the team that discarded him mid-season. He'll show Trey McBride might not play in this game in the concussion protocol. Zach Ertz shows them what they were missing.
You could do worse at tight end right now.
And probably are.
It's a good chance.
Yeah. Maybe Zach Ertz or Mark Andrews?
I have Zach Ertz higher.
Yeah.
I have Zach Ertz at 13. I have Andrews at 14. But still, I have Zach Ertz higher.
State of affairs.
All right, the hate list for pass catchers.
By the way, you know who might see some Zach Ertz this weekend? Slap them like a grape.
Oh,
That's
really?
right. I picked him up in the League of Assholes.
Wondering where you're going with that.
Praying for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Zach
Well,
Ertz?
I got Njoku, and I don't know if he's going to play or not. So I picked him up against, I might use him against you.
Let's go. Bird up Cardinals defense. Shut him down.
Good luck on that one.
Slap him like a grape at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
The hate list led by Garrett Wilson. I mean, if you know anything about the Broncos, you know Surtain is one of the best corners in the NFL, and the Broncos have allowed the fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. Teams have been game planning against Garrett Wilson all year, Matthew.
Metcalf had under 6 fantasy points against Patrick Surtain. George Pickens under 5 fantasy points. Mike Evans under 4 fantasy points.
Scary.
He has been a true shutdown corner. My only question to you, Connor, is do you think they will move Garrett Wilson around to try to avoid this coverage?
They will. They opened the game against the Patriots by just having a little rollout, and Garrett Wilson with a shallow crosser and got him the ball in the first play just to get him involved. And it was an okay game for him, fine game by his standards. Yeah. They'll do the same. The problem is Surtain will follow him into the slot. So this could be a tough one for Garrett Wilson. And Rodgers has been looking elsewhere when that kind of attention is on him.
Good Lord, it might be another Allen Lazard week.
It may be another Allen Lazard week. And Rodgers mentioned that with the shutdown corners that Wilson has gone up against with L'Jarius Sneed, Christian Gonzalez, things also from Travarius Ward in week 1, too. So, yeah, this very much fits the bill. But Garrett Wilson will break out at some point. Again, I would be hoping, if you don't have Garrett Wilson, that he has another bad game and then to trade for him because he's not going to play the best corner in the league.
I'm at wide receiver 21, which is the lowest I think I would ever rank Garrett Wilson with a real quarterback under center for him. I think you're still probably starting him. Obviously, it depends on what else you have there. The other negative on Wilson is like the game's in New York or whatever, the game's home for the Jets, and so the expectation here is that they're going to be up big. Like the Broncos are significant underdogs in this game, and so they may not need to throw as much. And so to your point, he's going to try to get Mike Williams more involved. You got Lazard. Tyler Conklin was a thing last week as well. So just you don't feel like Garrett Wilson's lined up for a lot of reasons to have a huge game on Sunday.
Staying in this game, Courtland Sutton on the hate list here, Matthew. The Jets have allowed the 7th fewest yards to wide receivers this season. They're going to be keying in on Sutton. Obviously,
and Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed are as good a duo as in the NFL. Broncos were the 3rd lowest implied team total in Week 4. In terms of fantasy points per target, Courtland Sutton is 75th out of 77 qualified wide receivers in fantasy points per target. Minimum 10 targets. Like he needs massive volume. It's how lucky do you feel? Do you think he gets in the end zone? I don't. I'm at wide receiver 37.
You almost need a garbage time touchdown.
You absolutely do.
Which is a tough thing to expect in fantasy.
Yeah. Michael Nix looked better last week, but we'll see.
It was his best game so far.
So we'll see.
Michael Pittman, Jay, the Steelers have been really good against wide receivers this season. Pittman, just nothing going consistently in the pass game of this offense.
Yep, and his game just seems totally antithetical to what Anthony Richardson is doing at the moment, where Richardson is running or throwing deep bombs, and Pittman's game has always been more short, intermediate, and working in the slot and getting open in the middle of the field, and Richardson just hasn't shown any capacity yet to really maximize that type of skill set. I mean, I see Anthony Richardson complete more than 50% of his passes in a game and just show that accuracy, and going up against the Steelers defense, which I think, through 3 weeks, it's probably them and Minnesota who have been the 2 best defenses. And it's not like the Steelers are weak in a specific area. They've just been dominant all around.
He's going to see a lot of Joey Porter Jr. and Richardson's been bad. It's just, and Pittman has never, by the way, the other thing is Pittman has never been a touchdown guy.
No.
Like Pittman's game fantasy-wise has always been just massive volume here, and just given the matchup, given the lack of accuracy that we've seen so far from Anthony Richardson, I'm at wide receiver 39. Like I have him ranked lower than Courtland Sutton, Jay.
Yeah, that's grim. Do you think that Anthony Richardson will get progressively better over the course of the season, or do you think this is kind of a long-term?
Would you be trying to trade for Anthony Richardson in your fantasy league, and or if you had him, are you trying to, get 50 cents on the dollar for him?
I'm riding it out if I have him because I think these kinds of games will urge him to run more. That's why I'm confident individually on Anthony Richardson. I'm not confident on the pieces around him. Now you have Josh Downs back in this offense. They're going to use Jonathan Taylor. I think Richardson will run more effectively throughout the season, where I like him, but I don't see much better days ahead for the wide receivers he's throwing to.
Certainly not. Certainly not. It's just the question is, what do you do with Richardson, who some people had as their number 1 quarterback, some people had as QB3.
He was taken very early.
Very early. Last one for me on the hate list, guys, is you brought him up, but Mark Andrews. He's playing 33% of the snaps. I have to believe he can't be healthy. He's got 8 targets in 3 games. He's currently 5th on the Ravens in targets. He's 5th. This is Mark Andrews.
Most people struggle to name the 4 players over him.
Like he's behind Rashad Bateman.
Right.
He's behind Justice Hill. Yeah, I mean, and obviously Zay Flowers and as well in there. He has less targets than Isaiah Likely. And through 3 weeks, he's tight end 30 on a points per game basis. He's getting 4.2 fantasy points per game. Like he's my tight end 14, but I mean, I'm not starting him in any league that I have him. I need to see it first.
Yep.
Not against the Bills.
Dominate this NFL season with the Fantasy Life Plus subscription. Get weekly rankings, start sit advice, DFS analysis, and betting tools. Use promo code SEASON20 for 20% off. Go to fantasylife.com/rotoworld to learn more. We're taking our first break. When we're back, love-hate continues with the quarterbacks right after this.
Can you give this team and Nick any kind of insight over what they might see from Cliff?
No.
What are some of the major differences between the offense playing under Cliff and now playing under Drew?
Two different systems. You know, obviously, one, you know, more relying on other things, and another one more relying on other things.
That's fantastic.
Love-hate quarterbacks. What a wink by Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I don't know. For people that are just listening to the audio of it, at the end of that quote, Kyler Murray legit winks at the reporter. Like, just doesn't feel like there's a lot of love lost between him and Cliff Kingsbury with that answer. But I thought Kyler took the high road very smartly. When you're a ride or die, that's what you do. When you're a franchise player, that's what you do. And so I cannot wait for Kyler Murray to throw 5 touchdowns in a thrilling 1-point loss to my Commanders. That's what I'm rooting for here. That's
really a collision of your world.
It really is tough for me. But I do think Kyler Murray has a monster game. He's my number 2. Very much so. Listen, he's my number 2 quarterback this week. No team has a higher implied team total in week 4 than the Arizona Cardinals. No team gives up more fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks than my Commanders. They're giving up 24.4 fantasy points per game. Every quarterback that's faced the Commanders. And that includes, by the way, Baker Mayfield and Daniel Jones. Every quarterback faced the Commanders so far this year has finished as a top 7 quarterback for the week. They're 31st in pass defense. They've allowed the most passing touchdowns here. Jay, it's they're traveling on a short week. You know, they stayed in Arizona. They went from Cincinnati straight to Arizona. They've been working out at Arizona State all week. But still, this should be a big day for Kyler Murray, for my ride or die.
What's the yards record in an NFL game? Because it has to be in play with what Kyler's going to do to this defense. The thing with the Commanders' defense, too, is I don't think there's any upside. Where's the talent?
They just don't have the talent. It's not a Dan Quinn issue.
Yeah.
They don't have the talent.
Right.
They missed on countless picks over the years on defense.
Ron Rivera actively decided, with Christian Gonzalez sitting there, said, you know what, give me some Emmanuel Forbes. He was a scratch last week.
Yeah, I didn't see him on the stat sheet.
Oh no, it's awful. I mean, the cupboard is so bare from
you don't show up on the stat sheet when you're just looking around and seeing somebody run by you all the time.
Yeah, no, exactly. I've done my Emmanuel Forbes impression too. It's a lot of
and then the sideline's just like.
And now he doesn't play anymore.
Yeah, now he's a healthy scratch.
Yeah.
So, that being said, big day on tap for Kyler Murray.
Yes.
But the positive for the Commanders, big day on tap potentially for Jayden Daniels, who's coming off his best game as a pro.
It'd be nice to hear somebody else talk about Jayden Daniels on this desk.
Yeah, well, look, the thing is that the underlying stats on Jayden Daniels are even better than the actual stats in terms of EPA per play, in terms of their points per drive and how they're moving the ball. And I get that they haven't played amazing defenses, but to do this against any defense, look at what he did to the Bengals and what Patrick Mahomes the week before couldn't do to the Bengals. I think Daniels, and the criticism of Daniels has always been, one, that he takes off when he feels pressure, and then 2, that he doesn't work the middle of the field. Well, that's fine. If he's taking off when he feels pressure and running for yards, and then also we've seen what he can do with the deep bombs down the field, connecting with Terry McLaurin. He was actually working the middle of the field a bit more, I thought, against the Bengals.
I agree.
And this defense for Arizona, I mean, we're talking about the Commanders' defense and how bare the cupboard is there. It's not like the Cardinals' defense is all that much better.
They're not. Big day on tap for Jayden Daniels, and he's sliding for the first time in his life, which if they can keep him healthy, I mean, he can run away from anyone. That's the difference right here. I mean, Matthew, he's one of only 3 quarterbacks that have multiple 25-plus point games this season, and the company he's in is a MVP Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, who's off to a freakish start.
MVP favorite.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, listen, I had him inside my top 10 in terms of the ranks. He was on the preseason love list for a reason as well. specific to this matchup, Arizona allows the third highest passer rating to opposing quarterbacks, double-digit rush attempts in every game so far this year for Jayden Daniels. And the other thing here is that while the defense is bad for the Commanders, the defense is great for the fantasy value of Jayden Daniels because, again, we expect Kyler Murray to put up points, so Jayden Daniels is going to have to put up points. And to me, the most impressive thing about the Monday night win, and I mean, the stats are crazy, like 91% completion rate. It's all like just stupid made-up video game type stuff that you wouldn't, if you didn't see it, you wouldn't believe, right? But to me, the most impressive thing, Connor, about Jayden Daniels wasn't just that he completed a bunch of passes, but it was the types of passes. Like they converted third downs, fourth downs, like multiple fourth down conversions, multiple third down conversions with tough passes over the middle, hitting Ertz, hitting McLaurin, running for it. Like, you know what, I'm going to get hit, but I don't care. I'm gutting out this first down. And so I just think I think he's a special kid. I'm very excited about him, obviously. I have Kyler Murray at 2. I have Jayden Daniels at 3. But, wheels up for both guys today. Both guys on Sunday.
Rest of the season outlook, it's Allen, Lamar, Hurts, then Daniels. I mean, he's right there, right?
That's a good question.
I mean,
I'd take him over Mahomes.
Yeah, but right. I don't know if I'm taking him over Murray just yet.
Sure.
Murray's my ride or die. But, he's probably top 5. Yeah. Like, if you're redrafting today.
He's probably 5.
Yeah.
Which is
incredible.
Which is unbelievable. Like, look, and my column that's out today, it's free on rotoworld.com, NBCsports.com. I love-hate column for week 4. I'm a company man. Is about the hope that Jayden Daniels has given myself and all sorts of Commanders fans that, like, just this is. I texted Monday night, as you can imagine, my phone was blowing up. It was just like, and the response back and forth was the same. We got a quarterback.
Yeah.
Like in the NFL, that's all you need. Like, think about the Jets fans. The Jets fans were like, oh, we're in the desert. They get Aaron Rodgers. Now we got a quarterback.
Thursday night was, for some people, there's Jet fan kids that had never seen anything like that before. And there's the same thing with younger Commanders fans.
Yeah. You're both on the beach in Ziwataneo.
Yes.
The end of Shawshank. Not to spoil Shawshank Redemption for anyone who hadn't seen it. It came out in 1994.
Tough.
Okay.
All right. Spoiling one of the all-time greats.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, screw you, Jay.
I was planning on watching that one this weekend.
Darth Vader is Luke's father, by the way.
Yeah. Just like he's ruining movies.
Evil human.
Shawshank is one of those movies that, like, if it's on every time doesn't matter. Like, you're flipping through the channels and it's on, and you're like, oh, well, there goes the next.
Doesn't matter what point it's at.
No, exactly.
You just keep it on. Commercials or no commercials.
It's so good.
CJ Stroud also on the love list. It's been a slow start for CJ Stroud so far, but he's got Jacksonville, Matthew, who looked truly dreadful against Josh Allen, which can happen. And Stroud's great at home, traditionally.
Traditionally really good at home. So far in his career, when he's playing at NRG Stadium, he's averaging 21 fantasy points per game. He's averaging over 300 passing yards per game. And to your point about the Jaguars' defense, Connor, they're bottom 3 in pass defense so far this year. They've given up the second most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. CJ Stroud needs to get right, and this is a get-right game for him. I'm his QB4 this week.
And also Tyson Campbell's still on IR. He's their best corner, so it's not going to get better, in my opinion, for Jacksonville. Some others receiving votes here. Geno Smith, your guy, Jay.
Animal down.
Oh, man.
Yes, sure.
As opposed to bird up.
It's
like, cat down.
Yeah, there we go. Now we're getting closer.
Cat down.
Well,
bird up.
Cat being the antonym of bird.
Yes.
Essentially. Okay.
Cat down.
Cat down.
Geno Smith and Andy Dalton.
Keep pounding.
Also on the love list. For Geno Smith, QB11, Andy Dalton, QB17, more super flex viable.
I don't think people are aware of this. I feel like not enough. Maybe it's because they haven't beat anyone, quote unquote, real. But I think no one's talked. Seattle's 3-0, and Geno has completed over 70% of his passes in every game this year. Like, he's such a good fit for Ryan Grubb's offense. Yeah. Like, just no one is talking about Seattle, and I don't know. Like, give the Seahawks credit. Anyway, I'm his QB11, Geno. We've talked about this as well. I think that could be kind of a shootout against the Lions. And then Andy Dalton at home against Cincinnati. Revenge game for the Red Rifle, the Red Rocket, the Red Dog, the Red Rooster.
Yes, all of that and above.
The Red from Shawshank.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Red was very much here on the score sheet last week against the Raiders. With Geno has become, I think, the most underrated quarterback in football, where, like, he had his year 2 years ago where he's comeback player of the year. He takes a little bit of a downward step last year, but he was banged up. Geno is just playing like a top 10 quarterback, like real life football, and I think that'll start manifesting itself in fantasy. He's had these 3 picks, all that were unlucky. There is a big gap between his underlying numbers, which look awesome, and then his actual numbers. But the key key is that I think JSN, despite a poor week last week, he's taken a leap. He has 3 legit weapons in the passing game, and he has an offensive coordinator who's super creative and also wants to throw the ball a lot. So Geno, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Geno finishes as a top 8, top 9 quarterback.
For sure, and we know the struggles of this Bengals defense. They're on the road on a short week at Carolina. Dalton looked good last week as well. I'm as a top 20 play this week, Andy Dalton at QB 17. My only question to you, Jay, is that after all the money that you've once again bet on Damar Hamlin for Comeback Player of the Year, when Andy Dalton wins it at the NFL Honors in February, what is your reaction going to be?
Can you imagine if Damar Hamlin, after losing to Joe Flacco, loses to Andy Dalton?
Does he
and
qualify?
No, he doesn't. He's not coming back from an injury. They changed the rules.
They didn't change the rules. They just changed the guidelines.
Yeah, but
Which people don't read. People forget this. The people that vote do not read.
They don't read.
Yeah, I think that enough people will read it. That Darnold, Fields, Dalton, these guys, they can't win. But if Andy Dalton were to win, then I'm excited for Damar Hamlin to lose next year when Mike Glennon gets off the couch and leads the Giants to the playoffs.
Right.
It'd be great.
Is it Mike Glennon or does it stay in the AFC North? Maybe it's Tim Couch.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Jake Locker comes back.
Yeah,
it'd be
exactly.
really good.
The hate list led by Anthony Richardson for our quarterbacks here right now.
Flacco's in Baltimore and Dalton, Cincinnati. I went to old AFC North quarterbacks. That's just in case anyone was wondering about the math there.
Yeah, Brady Quinn.
Yeah, there you go. Could have been Brady Quinn.
We talked earlier about how the Steelers' defense is just great. Richardson has been really struggling for the most part of this season, Matthew, and that's the matchup he gets handed this week.
He has yet to have a game with a completion ratio over 50%. Pittsburgh has yet to allow a quarterback to score double fantasy points this year, and that includes Kirk Cousins. I have him outside my top 12 this week, and Rodgers of your New York Jets also makes the hate list this well. Look, third lowest game total in Week 4, 38.5 over under. Denver second in pass defense, 6th in scoring defense, and because the Jets defense is so good, I don't think they're going to have to score a lot of points in this game. Feels like it's a lot of run game in the second half. Rodgers isn't going to have to do much to beat them. So also outside my top 12 for the week.
They do hate Sean Payton, though.
Oh, you know what? I might have screwed up.
They have to protect him, so I don't think he'll be taking 7-step drops up 30 points throwing, but boy, do they hate Sean Payton.
You know what? I hadn't thought about that by putting Aaron Rodgers on the hate list. This is the Nathaniel Hackett
They
revenge
beat him last game.
year,
but it's Hackett's revenge game now with his
Rodgers,
best weapon,
with his guy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
You might be right. There might be some cheap, Aaron Rodgers FU touchdowns I might take off Aaron Rodgers on the hate list. By the way, asterisk there. I might have screwed this one up, guys. I hadn't thought about that. I might have screwed that one up.
It's time to choose your lineup, brought to you by Jameson. Join our unofficial call to try to get pro football to Dublin. Visit jamesonsports.com for more. All right, Matthew, 4 flex picks for Week 4. What do you got?
One at each position, right? Let's start at quarterback with Justin Fields. I'm at QB 15 facing the Colts. 50% of the team's goal line rushes this year has gone to Justin Fields. We've talked about the Colts and their run defense. Only 2 teams have allowed more rushes of 10 or more yards than the Colts, so they give up the big play on the ground. Fields is a viable streamer this week. How about Brian Robinson of my Commanders at Arizona? He's top 5 among running backs in goal line rushes this year. When they get close, they like to give it to him. No Austin Eckler in this game. He's still in the concussion protocol. Cardinals bottom 10 in most fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs. At wide receiver, my guy Jauan Jennings. Should be another game of Jauan Jennings. 40% target share last week. Got 2 end zone targets. We're expecting Christian Gonzalez to shadow Brandon Ayuk. So going against the Patriots, who allow the 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers, and Gonzalez shutting down Ayuk. No Debo. We'll see if Kittle is back. Jauan Jennings is wide receiver 23 for me this week. He's an upside wide receiver 3. And finally, at tight end, how about Cole Kmet, right? Route participation and snap rate has increased every week. Rams have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. So get Kmet into your lineup.
Very nice. Sunday night, it's a matchup between 2 of the league's top playmakers. Josh Allen leads the Bills against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Sunday, 7 Eastern on NBC and Peacock. Don't go anywhere. When we're back, we still have our best bets for Thursday Night Football right after this. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. It's time for last call. Let's take a look at the most bet props for Thursday Night Football on DraftKings right now. Devin Singletary's receiving yards over 15.5 is at -130. And then it's all CeeDee Lamb. We got an alt line of 100 plus. We got lower alt lines of 60 plus, 70 plus, 80 plus is closer to the norm. Jay, I know you have something better than a CeeDee Lamb alt line on your mind here.
Reaching deep into the bag. We're bringing back the sack props.
Okay. Whoa.
Let's get physical. Brian Burns, over 0.25 sacks, plus 114. He's playing over 80% of the snaps. He had 6 pressures against Cleveland. He got his first sack of the season. Dak Prescott, quietly, his past 4 games, sacked 3 times, 3 times, 3 times, 4 times. This offensive line, little suspect with the tackles. Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence taking up the middle, and Brian Burns on the outside. Give me over 0.25 sacks for Brian Burns.
I like that call.
Big fan. I'm going to go Jake Ferguson over 41.5 receiving yards. Jake Ferguson had 11 targets last week. He obviously had a huge day. I think he could top this number against the Giants defense that's not great against tight ends.
Yeah, and look, I never love to go with the public, but on the other hand, it is my guy 8s. I call him 8. CeeDee Lamb. I'm taking the actual line. It's 82.5. So I'm taking the over on this. Look, he's hit this number against the Giants 3 of the last 4 games. The Giants have 2 corners out in this game as well, and so just you think about last week was so embarrassing. CeeDee Lamb did not have a good game. He had a couple of drops in that game. Primetime game. You're the Cowboys. We need to get back. This is a division game. Dak Prescott is not going to be stupid here. Let me get the ball in our best playmakers' hands early and often. I think CeeDee Lamb balls out tonight on national television against a Giants secondary that obviously, like I said, is banged up and has struggled.
Don't worry about my man Deontay Banks, shadow coverage, CeeDee Lamb.
No, they'll move him around. I'm not, and they'll.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean they'll also move Lamb around a lot as well. So I don't think Banks is a shutdown corner. He's a nice player, but I don't think he's a shutdown.
He's not.
I'm trying to be nice here, but I'm not worried about whoever's on CeeDee Lamb. I don't think CeeDee Lamb is.
How are we feeling tonight? This is a big one.
This is a big one
for
the
the 80-1 ticket.
I wish that Phillips and Jackson weren't out and that we had some more cornerbacks. I do think the D-line, which is, as envisioned, has become the identity of the team. I do think that will help. I'm a little bit worried about the Dallas pass rush going up against my man Daniel Jones, who quietly I don't think was very good against Cleveland. I think it was really just Malik Neighbors and the fact that the Browns were such a disaster. So I kind of, when it first came out, I leaned Giants, but with the injuries now, I would take the Cowboys if forced at the line, though I think 5.5 is fair.
Yeah, it feels like Dallas just needs a get-right
game. They need a get-right game. I think if you're the Giants, because they're going to do everything they can, the Cowboys are, I think, to take away Malik Neighbors. I think if you're the Giants, you're like you got to pound Devin Singletary. Maybe we see some Tyrone Tracy. Try to get Wan'Dale Robinson involved a little bit. Just feels like, Neighbors is such a huge talent, but it also just feels like the more you can sort of control the clock and just exploit that Cowboys run defense that has struggled is.
And I'm worried that Devin Singletary is not Derrick Henry or Alvin Kamara.
There's a chance.
For a day, Devin.
Listen, it's that music means it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Go get yourself a mullet. Good luck to Jay's Giants tonight. For Mr. Croucher and Connor Rodgers, I'm Matthew Berry. Go read, love, hate. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.